They expected me to quarrel, to suffer in peace, to pretend nothing happened. But my revenge was so loud it made front-page news. The day I found the recordings, I was looking for batteries in Daniel's desk drawer. Instead, I found a USB drive labeled Company Files 2024. Something made me plug it in. What I heard made my hands shake so badly I had to sit on the floor. My husband's voice, crystal clear, talking to his brother about how they'd been stealing from my father's company for 3 years. The company Dad built from nothing. The company he trusted Daniel to help run after the stroke left him unable to work. They laughed about it. Actually laughed. Called my father a foolish old man who never checked the books properly. Said I was too busy playing housewife to notice anything. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my lungs. I sat there for 2 hours, listening to every single file. I didn't cry. That surprised me most of all. I always thought if Daniel betrayed me, I'd fall apart completely. Instead, something cold and sharp settled in my stomach. I made copies of everything, hid them in 3 different places, then put the USB back exactly where I found it. That night at dinner, I smiled at Daniel across the table. Asked about his day. He kissed my forehead and said how lucky he was to have me. I watched him eat the pasta I'd made and wondered how many times he'd sat here planning his next theft. My father called during dessert, his speech still slurred from the stroke. Daniel took the phone, voice full of fake concern, promising to check on some accounts tomorrow. I excused myself to the bathroom and threw up. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake running through options. Go to the police? They'd investigate, sure, but Daniel's brother worked in finance and knew how to hide money trails. Divorce? He'd get half of everything I owned, maybe more. Tell my father? The stress might kill him. He'd already lost so much. No, I needed something bigger. Something that would expose them completely and protect Dad's company at the same time. I started going through every document I could access. Bank statements, company records, emails. Daniel thought I was organizing household files. Stupid, trusting housewife, right? That's what he'd called me on the recordings. I started making a timeline, connecting dots. The thefts started small but grew bolder. They'd stolen nearly $2 million. My best friend Rachel noticed something was wrong when we met for coffee. I'd lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. She asked if Daniel and I were fighting. I almost told her everything right there, but stopped myself. The fewer people who knew, the better. Instead, I said I was stressed about Dad's health. She hugged me tight and said I was the strongest person she knew. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was made of glass, one wrong move from shattering. But I also felt focused in a way I'd never experienced. Every morning, I'd wake up with purpose. Document everything. Find every piece of evidence. Build a case so solid they couldn't wiggle out. At night, I'd kiss my husband goodnight and think about justice. The newspaper reporter contacted me by accident. She was writing a story about small family businesses struggling after the pandemic. Someone had given her my father's company as an example of resilience. We met at a coffee shop downtown, and she asked about our success story. I almost laughed. Success story. If only she knew. But then something clicked in my brain. The media. That was the answer. Public exposure. I told her I'd love to help with the article, maybe give her a tour of the company offices. She seemed excited, said the story would run in about a month. Perfect timing. That gave me 4 weeks to gather the last pieces of evidence and plan everything perfectly. I shook her hand and felt electricity run through my body. Daniel announced he was taking his brother on a fishing trip the same weekend the article would publish. They did this twice a year, always to some remote cabin with barely any cell service. Usually, I hated being alone. This time, I smiled and helped him pack. I even made them sandwiches for the drive. His brother, Kevin, hugged me goodbye and called me his favorite sister-in-law. I was his only sister-in-law. I watched them drive away and immediately got to work. First stop was my lawyer's office. I'd found one 3 towns over, someone Daniel didn't know. I walked in with 2 boxes of evidence and a plan that made the lawyer's eyebrows climb to her hairline. She was quiet for a long moment, then smiled slowly. My lawyer's name was Patricia, and she was absolutely brilliant. She'd handled corporate fraud cases before and knew exactly what we needed. We spent 12 hours going through everything. She made copies, organized files, contacted a forensic accountant she trusted. The accountant worked through the night and confirmed what I already knew. The theft was systematic, clever, and completely traceable once you knew what to look for. They'd created fake vendor accounts, inflated expenses, skimmed money from client payments. Patricia said we had enough for criminal charges, civil suits, and a slam-dunk divorce. But I wanted more. I wanted everyone to know. I wanted it loud. She understood. We crafted a statement for the reporter, timed everything perfectly. The trap was set. The reporter called me 3 days before publication. She'd been doing background research and found some irregularities in the company finances. Public records showed concerning patterns. Was everything okay? My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I'd recently discovered something disturbing and would she be interested in a much bigger story? The silence on the other end lasted 5 seconds. Then she said yes, absolutely yes. We met that evening at her office. I brought Patricia and all our evidence. The reporter's hands actually trembled as she looked through the documents. She said this was the biggest story she'd covered in 15 years. Could she bring in her editor? I nodded. By midnight, we had a plan that would blow everything wide open. The newspaper wanted to run the story on Sunday, their highest circulation day. They'd do a front-page feature with a full investigation inside. They contacted the police, who agreed to coordinate arrests with the publication. Patricia filed all the legal paperwork to be served that same morning. We synchronized everything down to the minute. I barely ate that week. My stomach stayed in knots. But I also felt powerful in a way I never had before. Years of being underestimated, called stupid, treated like decoration. They had no idea what I was capable of. Friday night, I called Daniel at the cabin. He sounded relaxed, happy. Said he'd caught a huge fish. I told him I loved him and couldn't wait for him to come home. It was the last lie I'd ever tell him. Saturday, I moved half my belongings to a storage unit Patricia had helped me rent. Clothes, photos, important documents, mom's jewelry. Things I couldn't risk losing in the chaos ahead. I cleaned the house until it sparkled, which seemed absurd, but I needed to keep moving. That night, I drove to my father's care facility. He was having a good day, speech clearer than usual. I held his hand and told him I needed to tell him something difficult. His eyes focused on mine with concern. I explained everything as gently as possible. Showed him some of the evidence. Watched his face crumble, then harden. He squeezed my hand with surprising strength. Said he was proud of me. Asked what would happen next. I told him tomorrow, the world would know the truth. Sunday morning arrived bright and cold. I woke at 5, made coffee I couldn't drink, and waited. The newspaper hit doorsteps at 6. My phone stayed silent until 6:30, then exploded. Rachel called first, voice shaking. She was looking at the front page. My face was on it, alongside Daniel's and Kevin's corporate headshots. The headline read, "Local woman exposes $1 million theft by husband and brother-in-law." The article was devastating. Every detail laid bare. The fake accounts, the stolen money, the betrayal of a stroke victim's trust. They'd even found 3 other small business owners Daniel and Kevin had defrauded. It was bigger than I'd thought. My phone rang continuously. I ignored everyone except Patricia, who confirmed the police were making arrests at the cabin right now. The police body cam footage would later become public record, and I watched it 100 times. Daniel's face when they showed up at the cabin door. Confusion, then panic, then rage as they read him his rights. Kevin tried to run out the back and fell into the lake. They were both soaked and handcuffed within 10 minutes. The video showed Daniel screaming my name, saying I'd regret this, that I was nothing without him. An officer told him to be quiet. The drive back to town took 3 hours, and by the time they arrived, news vans surrounded the police station. Someone had already made memes using their mugshots. The internet works fast. Daniel's mother called me 17 times that morning. I blocked her number after she left a voicemail calling me evil. Monday brought more chaos. The forensic accountant's full report went to prosecutors, and they announced formal charges. 14 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of embezzlement, conspiracy to commit fraud. Each count carried potential prison time. The bail hearing was Tuesday, and the judge set it at $500,000 each. Neither could pay. They'd spent the stolen money on cars, trips, Kevin's gambling debts. There was nothing left. They sat in jail while I stayed in a hotel, hiding from reporters camped outside my house. Patricia said the media attention was actually helpful. It meant prosecutors couldn't go easy on them. Public pressure demanded justice. I gave one interview to the reporter who broke the story. Kept it simple, focused on protecting other small businesses. The clip went viral. The company clients started calling. Most were supportive, grateful I'd exposed the fraud before they lost more money. 3 threatened lawsuits, which Patricia handled. She was worth every penny. Dad's company actually gained new clients from people who respected our transparency. I started helping with the books myself, something I should have done years ago. Turned out I was good with numbers. Better than Daniel ever was. The accountant I hired to clean up the mess said I had a natural eye for irregularities. Maybe I should have trusted that eye sooner, paid attention to the small things that didn't add up. But I'd been taught to be supportive, trusting, to let my husband handle business. Those days were over. I was done being anyone's fool. Daniel's lawyer tried to make a deal. If I dropped the civil suit and agreed to a quiet divorce, they'd plead guilty to reduce charges. Patricia laughed in their faces. We had video evidence, paper trails, witness testimony. We didn't need deals. I wanted full restitution for Dad's company, my divorce, and maximum sentencing. The prosecutor agreed. This was too public to go soft now. Daniel wrote me letters from jail. Long, rambling things that swung between apologies and accusations. He said I'd destroyed his life over money, that family should forgive. I burned every letter unread after the first one. He'd destroyed Dad's life's work, betrayed everyone who trusted him, and called me stupid while doing it. His comfort wasn't my concern anymore. My only concern was making sure he faced consequences. The trial started in October, 6 months after the arrests. I sat in the front row every single day, dressed professionally, taking notes. Daniel couldn't look at me. Kevin glared constantly, like I was the criminal. The prosecutor was thorough and brilliant. Every document, every transaction, every lie laid out in excruciating detail. Their defense tried to claim I'd known about everything, that I was involved too. That strategy backfired spectacularly when Patricia presented my timeline of discovery, the dated copies I'd made, witness statements from the lawyer and accountant about when I'd first contacted them. The jury looked at me with sympathy and at Daniel with disgust. It took them 4 hours to convict on all counts. I didn't smile or celebrate. I just felt tired and relieved. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Daniel got 12 years. Kevin got 15 because of his prior fraud conviction I hadn't known about. The judge was harsh, talking about how they'd exploited family trust and targeted a vulnerable stroke victim. She ordered full restitution plus penalties. They'd be paying it off for decades. As they led Daniel away, he finally looked at me. Really looked at me. I met his eyes steadily, let him see that I wasn't the person he'd married. That person would have suffered quietly, pretended everything was fine, protected his reputation over her own dignity. This person had learned she was capable of calculated fury. This person had dismantled his life as thoroughly as he'd tried to dismantle Dad's company. He looked away first. I walked out of that courthouse with my head high. The divorce was finalized by December. I got the house, my inheritance protected, and half of what little assets remained after restitution payments. Daniel's retirement account, his car, his designer watch collection. Not that those things mattered. What mattered was standing in an empty courtroom while a judge dissolved 7 years of marriage in 15 minutes. Patricia hugged me afterward. Said she'd never seen someone handle a case like this with such precision. I thanked her, meant it deeply. None of this would have worked without her guidance. We'd become friends through the process, bonded over late-night strategy sessions and dark humor about how terrible people could be. She said I should consider law school. I laughed, but later I thought about it seriously. Maybe I would. Dad's company recovered faster than expected. With proper management and the publicity from exposing the fraud, we actually expanded. Hired 3 new employees, landed 2 major contracts. Dad came to the office once a week now, mostly for morale, but his presence meant everything to the staff. He still couldn't talk easily, but he'd squeeze my shoulder and smile with such pride it made my chest ache. We'd survived something that should have destroyed us. Instead, it made us stronger, smarter, more careful. I implemented new financial controls, required dual signatures on major transactions, hired an outside firm for quarterly audits. Nothing like this would happen again on my watch. The business magazines called it a comeback story. I called it justice and hard work. The anniversary of finding that USB drive passed quietly. 1 year since my entire life had detonated. I spent the day hiking alone, thinking about everything that had changed. A year ago, I'd been someone who avoided conflict, who made herself small, who believed keeping peace was more important than demanding respect. Now I was running a company, testifying as an expert witness in fraud cases, sleeping soundly at night. People recognized me sometimes. The woman from the newspaper story. Some asked for advice about their own situations. I always gave the same response. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Don't suffer quietly to protect someone who wouldn't protect you. The old me would have been embarrassed by the attention. The new me understood it meant something. Daniel's mother showed up at my office without warning one Tuesday. Security called to ask if I wanted her removed. I was tempted, but curiosity won. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired. She sat across from my desk and asked why I'd destroyed her son's lives so viciously. I let the question hang in the air for a moment. Then I pulled out the USB drive, still in its sleeve labeled Company Files 2024, and slid it across the desk. Told her to listen to it, hear what her sons really thought of me, of my father, of the people they'd stolen from. She didn't touch it. Just stared at it like it might bite her. I said they'd destroyed their own lives by being criminals. She left without another word, leaving the drive behind. Rachel got married that spring. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and standing beside her on her wedding day felt surreal. 2 years ago, I'd planned my own wedding, believed in forever, thought I understood what love meant. Now I watched her promise her life to someone and hoped she'd never know betrayal like I had. At the reception, people asked if I was dating. The question annoyed me. Like I needed another person to be complete. Like revenge and rebuilding weren't enough to fill my time. I'd learned I was whole by myself, capable of things I'd never imagined. Maybe someday I'd risk loving someone again. But right now, I loved my independence, my strength, my hard-won peace. That was enough. More than enough. The media attention finally faded after 18 months. New scandals replaced ours in the news cycle. I was grateful for the return to normalcy, even though normal looked completely different now. I'd moved into a smaller house, something truly mine that Daniel had never touched. Adopted a dog, started painting again, joined a book club. Simple things that made me happy without needing anyone's approval. Dad's health improved slightly, enough that we could have real conversations sometimes. He told me often how proud he was. Not just of exposing the fraud, but of rebuilding, of being strong. I'd think about the girl who found that USB drive, hands shaking, world collapsing. She'd become someone she never expected to be. Someone fierce. Kevin was released early for good behavior after serving 8 years. He left the state immediately, and I heard he was working construction somewhere down south. Daniel still had 4 years left on his sentence. He wrote one more letter that made it past my filters. It was different from the others. No accusations or excuses. Just an apology, simple and direct. Said he understood why I'd done what I did. That prison had given him time to realize how badly he'd failed at being human. He didn't ask for forgiveness or a response. Just wanted me to know he was sorry. I read it twice, then filed it away. Maybe it was genuine, maybe not. Either way, it didn't change anything. The past was settled. I'd built something new from the rubble. 5 years after everything exploded, I stood at a podium giving a speech to a room full of small business owners. They'd asked me to talk about protecting companies from internal fraud. I looked at the audience, saw people with the same trusting faces I'd once had, and told them the truth. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. Loyalty matters, but not more than integrity. Some people will exploit any opening, even family. Especially family sometimes. The best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about building something better from the ashes, becoming someone stronger than you were before. They applauded, asked questions, thanked me afterward. Driving home, I thought about that USB drive still locked in my safe. Evidence of the worst day that led to the best years. They'd expected me to stay quiet, to protect their secrets. Instead, I'd gotten loud enough to make headlines, and found my own voice in the process. I'd finally learned that peace bought with silence isn't peace at all. It's just slow surrender. And I was done surrendering.